Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. There is a death from COVID in Alberta every 90 minutes, night and day. Scary. Here in Ontario, the vaccine certificates, or as some call them, passports, will they help avoid what's happening in Alberta, do you think? What's your view? Are these passports, are they necessary? Or are they just fear-mongering of some kind? Doug Ford says that he has been opposed to passports, certificates, whatever you want to call them, since day one, but finally has come to the conclusion that this is the only way to avoid more lockdowns. And there is no question he is looking at what is happening in Alberta and says to himself, I know this for a fact, we cannot allow anything close to that to occur here in Ontario. It's scary what's happening in Alberta, and let's keep in mind that what is happening in Alberta now is what happens when you don't take COVID seriously. When you listen to the anti-vaxxers, the anti-maskers, and you listen to the people who think that this is all just a big scam, because essentially that's what Jason Kenney did on July 1st. He essentially opened the province up. He declared that the pandemic in Alberta was over, it was now an endemic, and the province was open. No more lockdowns, no more compulsory masking, and there was very little encouragement for people to get vaccinated. So, what's happening now? 1,600 new cases of COVID yesterday in Alberta. It's been roughly 1,600 to 1,700 new cases every single day for about the past 2 weeks. It's devastated the entire healthcare system. The troops are moving in to help. Every single hospital bed, corridor, etc., in every single hospital in Alberta is jammed almost exclusively with the unvaccinated. In fact, there was a very interesting statement that made me really start to think. I really hadn't thought of it in those terms, but the doctor, he was a leading doctor in Alberta, who was just absolutely exhausted. Apparently he had been working more than 24 hours without a break, trying to save lives in Alberta. Unbelievable. One death from COVID in Alberta every 90 minutes. And please keep something in mind, okay? If we had comparable cases in Ontario, it would mean that we had about 6,000 new cases a day in Ontario, because the population of Alberta is only about 4 million. In Ontario, it's 14.5 million. So if we had, on a comparison basis, on a per capita basis, if we had as many COVID cases, new COVID cases, as they now are experiencing in Alberta, we would have some 6,000 new cases every day. Every hospital bed would be occupied. Every ICU unit would be occupied. But the statement that made me really think from the Alberta doctor was this. He pointed out that almost every ICU bed in Alberta, and in BC too, by the way, every single ICU bed is now occupied with unvaccinated COVID patients. So the doctor pointed out that what is happening is that the people who have exercised their right not to be vaccinated and thus place themselves vulnerable to COVID, they have been exercising their right, but in the process, because they are jamming hospitals and ICU beds, in the process they are depriving other people, vaccinated people, from their right to hospital services. as the unvaccinated jam the hospitals, they force out everybody else. Other people who need other forms of surgery. In Alberta, every single elective surgery has been cancelled. Even emergency services such as cancer surgery, etc., has been postponed. It's overwhelmed the system. Why? Because back in July, Jason Kenney listened to the anti-vaxxers and said, you know what, we're going to open the province up. And he was cheered at the time. He was a great hero. Well, he's not a hero now. His approval rating is down to about, 9 or 10%. So, half the province was cheering him on. Yeah, let's open up, let's open up. And when he listened to them and did what they said, now he's the bad guy. Now he's in deep doo-doo. But my question to you today is, what is your view of the vaccine passports, or whatever you call it? This doesn't show up very well. Well, anyhow, you know what I mean.
Closer to your left.
Closer to my left. That's my left. Okay, there you go. There you go. This apparently we're going to get something a little bit more sophisticated than this, but this works fine. My wife and a good friend of hers had lunch yesterday at Baton Rouge in Canada here. They both used these. It was great. The process was just perfect. They went in, and it took them very, very little time, much less than a minute, to show proof of vaccination. Provide an ID. They have to make sure that your ID matches your certificate, and provide a little bit of information, your phone number, etc. No problems whatsoever. Everybody was very polite. They're well organized, and in they went and had a great lunch. Pardon me. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we are hearing reports, John, and I'm sure you've heard them as well, of ignorant, rude, bullying people in various restaurants and apparently in some other places of business as well, berating and in fact in some cases even threatening violence against people doing their job, clerks doing their job, waitresses doing their job. In some cases you've got a teenage kid there asking for information. They've been told how to do it and they're doing it very politely, and people will come in and start cursing and swearing at them, throwing things and so forth. This is obviously a minority, but I don't know what the hell's wrong with some of those anti-vax people. I mean, they certainly seem to have more than their fair share of ignorant, rude, stupid people. I mean, this is the same gang that threw gravel at Trudeau and helped him win the election, etc. I'm not saying that everybody is like that, but I'm telling you, I don't know about you, but I've just about had it up to there with the anti-vaxxers.
As you know, my wife works retail. I get at least 5 stories like that a day. The people working the front lines in retail are not the ones setting policy. In fact, the ones who own the stores are not the ones setting policy. They're following the government directive in order to keep their business afloat. I don't know where the attitude comes from either, Lowell, but it pisses me off. And if I'm ever witness to it, God help the person responsible mouthing off at an employee like that.
It's not just, they're not just doing what the government dictates they do. They're doing it to avoid a situation like they now are confronted with in Alberta.
100%.
I mean, that's what you have a choice. If you want to listen to the anti-vaxxers, people protesting in front of hospitals, etc., in Alberta, they listened to you. They did what you wanted. Open up, open up, open up. No more lockdowns. Well, 90 seconds, 90 minutes, every 90 minutes in Alberta, there is a death from COVID. So what do you think? Will these vaccine passports in Ontario help the situation? Now, before I start taking some texts, I hope we've got some coming in here, John.
We do, yep.
I just want to point something out. Doug Ford took a lot of criticism, and still taking criticism, for the lockdowns, etc., etc. But when you examine the situation in the rest of the country, you've got to admit that we've had our problems here, and I haven't always agreed that lockdowns were necessary, but in the end, we are doing better in Ontario than any other province, at least when it comes to the number of new cases and deaths and hospitalizations. We are doing better in Ontario than in any other province, with the possible exception of some of the Atlantic provinces, which essentially had a bubble around them. Let me just give you an example. The number of new cases in Ontario and Quebec every day are ranging somewhere about 650 to 700. A little over 700 today in Quebec. But please keep in mind that there are 6 million more people in Ontario than there are in Quebec. Ontario population, 14,677,000. Quebec population, 8,494,000. So while we have the same number of new cases on a daily basis, roughly, as Quebec, we have far more people here. And not only that, but when it comes to deaths, thus far in Quebec, 11,300 people have died from COVID in Quebec. In Ontario, 9,688. So we have fewer hospitalizations per capita, and we have far fewer deaths, not only per capita, but in total. So we are doing very well here. So all of you people out there who have been highly critical of Ford, etc., maybe it's time that you gave them a little tip of the cap. Many of the things were very unpleasant, but we have certainly avoided what happens in Alberta every single day now. John, how about some text, please?
Well, we've avoided it so far. Here's hoping the worst doesn't happen. 613-413-2217 is the number we'd love for you to call. You can text that number as well. We're following in real time on Facebook, on Twitter, on Twitch, and on YouTube. So if you post your comment on whatever platform you're watching on, we can get them up on the screen for other viewers, and some of them I'll be able to read to Lowell as well. By the way, new glasses coming for yours truly this weekend, so I should be able to read these a little more clearly. Oh, it's been torture, Lowell. You have no idea.
And by the way, we've checked with Debbie. She's finished with the dishes. So
before we went on the air, we actually did. She texted me just to make. She's, oh yeah, they're in the dishwasher. They're fine. All right, here we go. Back to business. I believe in free rights. You can get the vaccine on expert advice, or you can go without and take your chances with COVID. But if you choose that route, businesses as well as everyone around you deserve the right to refuse inviting you into their place. So yes, I guess I have the right, or I have to agree with passports, says that person by a text.
Now, the only thing is, and I think this is just gradually dawning on people, it's not just that you're placing yourself at risk, but as the doctor in Alberta pointed out, when unvaccinated people jam hospital beds, thus forcing cancellation of many other surgeries of vaccinated people, in fact, while these unvaxxed people are exercising their right, they are depriving vaccinated people of their right to hospital services. So it's, when I read in Facebook, oh, well, we should all love each other, etc., etc. Wait a minute. Hold it. I mean, if you're an unvaccinated person, you're doing a number of things. Number one, you're helping to prolong the epidemic, okay? The pandemic. There's no question about it. You're prolonging it. You're placing us all at risk, and if it gets really bad, as it has in Alberta, you're taking over all the hospital beds, which means that guys like me who may need surgery for my heart, we can't get it. So you're placing everybody at risk because we don't know. You may need some of these hospital services tomorrow, but if you live in Alberta, you ain't going to get them unless you got COVID. And the same thing in BC. Every single ICU bed in BC is now taken up by 100% unvaccinated people. They're not. I'm telling you, you're not getting the vaccine. You may be a very nice person, but you're bloody well no friend of mine, and they shouldn't be a friend of yours either. And it's time that they learn this lesson. Go ahead, John, please.
Donald says people who don't get vaccinated should be sent home from hospitals. Jennifer says, not a fan of the passports, but people harassing those who have no choice but to enforce them make me shake my head. Barry says, Lowell, if cooks, servers, and others in restaurants have to have proof of vaccination for COVID, what about them having HIV or hepatitis C?
Oh, come on. Come on. I don't understand comments like that. Are you not aware of what is happening in Alberta? Albertans are Canadians. They're the same as you. The only difference in Alberta is that on July 1st, they opened up the place. No more lockdowns, no more compulsory masking, etc., etc. And, don't talk to me about HIV, etc., all right? Talk to me about what is happening in front of your face. Every 90 minutes in Alberta, population only 4 million, every 90 minutes somebody is dying from COVID. Do you want that in Ontario? Because our population, if the comparable, if the comparable number here in Ontario would be 6,000 new cases every single day. Go ahead, John.
I agree with you, Lowell. I mean, this is apples and oranges. HIV, the flu, whatever else. It's not the same thing.
People are still trying to make excuses for the unvaccinated.
I don't get it.
You're taking up hospital beds and denying people like me and others who've been vaccinated from hospital service. We have a right to hospital services too, not just you. I get so agitated because I can see what's happening. I have relatives in Alberta, and I'm going to be honest with you. One of my relatives, a cousin in particular, he was in the vanguard of applauding Jason Kenney in July when Jason opened up the province. This is great. It's about time. And he was poking fun at Doug Ford for his lockdowns and so forth. Well, my cousin in Alberta, he's not so happy about Jason Kenney right now. And I reminded him. I reminded him. I was talking to him yesterday. I reminded him. You know what? Like 2-3 months ago, you were applauding Jason for opening up. You were urging Jason to open up. Well, this is what happened when you did. You happy now? Anyway, knuckleheads. You're right.
Those are some of the live comments coming in on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. I'm glad you see them out of the corner of your eye. Let's get a word in for Shields here if we can.
All right. Okay. Thanks, John. I need a little control here, right? Shields. Here's a great spot, folks. If you're in the market for appliances of any kind, and I mentioned this before, they have a great website. This is a very well done website. You just go there, just click on appliances, and whatever appliance that you want. If it's a microwave, freezer, whatever, just follow the instructions. It's really even I can do it. You'll see
That says a lot, folks.
That's right. That's right. Hey, you'll see all of the appliances that are there, in color, the prices, and the amount of money that you're going to save, because they have some very good sales. I want to tell you that Shields does a lot of business. Okay, they're particularly since I must applaud myself and John since we started advertising them here. They're very, very busy, and they're passing some of the savings along. Their operation costs are lower in Pakenham, okay? You can imagine it's quite a bit lower. They pass those savings on. You'll save money, but perhaps maybe even best of all, with very rare exceptions, what you want is in stock right there. They'll have it in your house within day 2 or maybe 3. Shields.ca. John, more text, please.
Every link for the show, the podcast, videos, etc., now easily accessible if you go to lowellgreen.com. All right, Tom says, as a result of all this, Biden is going to keep the border closed. Terry says, I read in the National Post there was a rumor they were putting vaccines in salad dressings. Now, that's not a rumor. It is a rumor. It came from Michael Flynn.
Who the hell is Michael Flynn?
Well, he was the head of the military under Trump.
Really?
He was Trump's military advisor, and he said it yesterday. Yep, they're now sneaking the vaccine into salad dressings.
You see, this guy had a position of authority, for God's sake.
Exactly.
I mean, these people have. It would seem to me that people who would believe that have got the IQ of a mosquito, and I'm not even sure about that. An IQ of an ant. I just don't understand. And they're putting vaccines in mayonnaise. This guy was in charge of what, the military?
He ran the U.S. military under Trump, yeah.
He was deciding who was going to get bombed.
Correct.
No, God. I mean, no wonder the world is in trouble. We got idiots running things here. Oh, go ahead, John.
I mean, if they really wanted to get it into the average American, put it in fast food. I won't mention any particular. Anyway,
put it on a donut.
There you see. Oh, crap. I mean, you got to laugh, right? Okay, Mike says, Mike says 1 out of 500 Americans have died of COVID. 20,000 Canadians have died from COVID. So
no, actually, I'm sorry. You're right. 1 in 500 Americans have thus far died from COVID. Think of that. 1 in 500 died from COVID. In Canada, It's almost 28,000. It's more than 20. Almost 28,000 people in Canada have died. In Quebec alone, 11,300. Ontario, 9,688 have died from COVID so far. And don't tell me that these figures are made up, okay? Because if you're trying to tell me that, what you're saying is that doctors and scientists and health experts, that your local doctor, they're all lying to us. Well, I don't believe that for a moment. Why would they lie? Go ahead, John.
People with a blood disease should be very careful for sure, but if they got blood on food and someone eats that food, and the chances getting that virus from is very rare. But if someone coughs COVID near you, which is an airborne disease, you will get COVID. That's a follow-up to the HIV comment, I think, moments ago.
Okay.
Craig says currently Alberta has 1,058 hospitalizations, 226 in the ICU, 2,611 deaths, 20,180 active cases, 10.33% positivity, 7-day average. The average age of death is 79.82, 12-plus population who received at least one dose, and 73.2% 12-plus fully vaccinated.
Yeah, thank you very much.
But you wrote that down, right?
Yeah. No, I have those figures, actually. But I just want to point out once again. Now, sometimes I think people say, "Oh, well, that's Alberta, that's not Ontario." The only difference is we were in lockdowns, masking, vaccinating, etc., when Alberta opened up. That's the only difference. There's no difference between the makeup of a person living in Alberta and a person living in Ontario. The only difference there is that we were in lockdowns, which poor old Ford took shit for. We were in lockdowns and masking, etc., while Alberta opened up. Alberta was in its glory for a while. Remember, there were rodeos with all sorts of people, unmasked and all the rest of it. Well, they're paying the price now. I just want to point out that they listen to the anti-vaxxers. Go ahead, John.
Melanie says, a kid in my daughter's kindergarten class was just sent home, and the parents told to get the kid tested. Parent picked up the two kids in the family. Mother tells the school staff member that the kids had been tested yesterday, but they don't have the results yet. This is why we can't have nice things, says Melanie. Cheryl has some breaking news. Apparently, Ming Wanzhou has basically walked from Canada and the USA after reaching a deferred prosecution agreement in the USA. So there's some breaking news on the Lowell Green Show for you. It's a different subject than what we're tackling right now, but thank you, Cheryl, nonetheless.
I was aware of the fact that they expected this to happen. Unfortunately, if we had a prime minister with some guts and a brain, we would have made sure that the freedom of the two Michaels had been included in that deal.
Yep.
I mean, very clearly a deal has been made. How the hell could we make a deal that does not involve the freedom of the two Michaels? I place that directly on Trudeau's back, right on his shoulders, right on his head, as vacant as it may be. Go ahead, John.
Carrie is following on Facebook. All your comments that you post on Facebook, on Twitch, on Twitter, on Twitch, etc., do show up in my feed, and I can pop them onto the screen and read some of them to Lowell. Carrie says, as of tomorrow at 4 p.m., Norway is opening up fully. Absolutely no restrictions. We warned our friends and family there to be careful, or it could end up just like Alberta.
Yeah, the only thing is Norway is the vaccination rate, my understanding is around 90%. So they're probably much safer to do it there. We still have about 7 million people in Canada who have not received one vaccine. Now, that includes children as well. But, very clearly, when you see the number of deaths, if you see 1,600 new cases in Alberta every single day, almost every one of them unvaccinated, then you understand there's still large numbers of people unvaccinated in this country, which is prolonging the damn pandemic. Bloody knuckleheads. Go ahead, John.
That word was posted earlier.
I love the head. I love the word, yeah.
Cheryl says Trudeau has his head stuck up China's ass. Craig says Trudeau couldn't negotiate his way out of a wet paper bag. Regarding our vaccine conversation, Peter says, be kind to the employees of the stores and eateries. I think anti-vaxxers are scared of COVID and won't get a vax when they should do it. It's free and can help the nation. Leanne says, if you don't want to get vaccinated, then don't go out to an indoor public place. Your choice. Another comment here. I'm told by someone who had COVID early on that she has been talking to doctors in Ottawa and others who get COVID and are in hospitals, begging doctors for a vaccine after the fact.
No doubt. Yeah, and there's. I mean, the news is filled with stories about people just before dying say, "Can you give me vac?" It's a little late. Then when you're in an ICU, well, on a ventilator, a little late to be asking then to be vaccinated. John, any more comments coming in?
Yes, sir. 613-413-2217. They should send the anti-vaxxers who get COVID to a military hospital or something similar if there is one.
I just want to throw the question out again.
Yep.
The topic, and I appreciate we've had some very good comments, but I'm really curious as to whether you think the vaccine the vaccine passport is a good idea in this province. That's really what I was trying to find out today. From the tone of most, I think that most people probably agree that it's necessary. And if for no other reason than we don't want to happen in Ontario what happened in Alberta. I hope that some of you anti-vaxxers start paying attention to what's happened in Alberta. Is that you anti-vaxxers out there that curse and swear at me? Do you really, really want a situation in our province similar to that's occurring in Alberta? Why do you think Alberta has the terrible problem that they have? Why do you think that is? Could it be because they listen to you? Is that really, really what you want for us? John, go ahead, please.
I'd like to ask, what's their solution? I'm open to hearing another solution if there is one. I'm not hearing other solutions.
Yeah, well, just drink. Apparently, you just put lots of mayonnaise on your fried egg sandwich, because according to this guy was in charge of deciding who gets bombed.
Michael
right?
Flynn. Yes, he was Trump's military advisor.
I mean, this is unbelievable.
Well, that's what's scary about it. When it comes from a place like that, no one. You can't be mad at somebody for saying, "Listen, like the guy in charge of the nukes, he said this. It's bullshit, but he said it."
Yet you would think that people, as you say, in charge of the nukes, in charge of whether we're going to wipe the planet from the face of the world or whatever. That was kind of a stupid statement, right? But you would think that he would have like a little bit of common sense, the ability to be slightly rational. Go ahead, John.
Let me see here. Why do you give any audience to anti-vaxxers? Why should they get hospital care if they don't want the cure? Asks Ray.
Because everybody's entitled to health care. The only problem is, if the hospital beds are all filled with anti-vaxxers, then you don't have a right to a hospital bed because there isn't one. Go ahead, John.
Mike says, I think the passports are a great idea. I went to the Mandarin restaurant on Hunt Club for lunch. They asked me for proof, and my driver's license was delicious, by the way. Mike, I think you needed a little punctuation point in there. My new glasses are not going to help that. Jim,
I love that. Wait till I read this. This is great. I think the passport of the great idea. Oh God! Went to the Mandarin restaurant at Hunt Club for lunch. They asked me for proof of my driver's license. Was delicious, by the way. I am so full, hard to get back at work. Oh, okay.
See.
You know what? He must be the product of an Ontario education system. No punctuation, no periods, no capitals. Just go. Go ahead, John.
My driver's license was delicious. It's probably the best thing I've heard next to flying fox farts on this show.
And by the way, I'm so full hard.
Jim in Halifax says the Alberta Premier should be removed and Alberta shut down now before it spreads. And he adds, close the borders with the USA. Well, they are closed, aren't they? Still?
Well, yeah, I mean, getting rid of Jason Kenney now is not going to help the situation. The province, as you know, has gone into a very serious lockdown. It's just a little late, that's all.
Mike says he apologizes. He's trying to work at the same time.
Oh, I understand. Oh, we're having a little bit of fun.
Hey, who's calling me? Who's calling me in the middle of my show?
We're a little out of time.
Sorry.
We're right out of.
Yeah, let's talk about Centennial Glass here, shall we?
Centennial Glass, folks. We keep. You have to give us a new whatever the hell that's you call that. It's beautiful, and as I've said before, I've said before, it's an illustration of the kind of inventiveness and workmanship too. By the way, the workmanship is very clear, very beautiful at Centennial Glass. And if it's glass of any kind,
oh
folks,
my gosh,
what?
They keep calling me, and my new phone is on the air, Lowell. I apologize for that. That's disgusting.
I haven't heard anything. Okay.
I know, but it's all over the radio.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
My God.
I found that out yesterday. Your wife was texting me during the show apologizing for the cutlery, and her little dings and dongs of my cell phone notification was coming through on the computer. Now, apparently, my cell phone rings through to my computer, so I apologize.
It's probably, you know who's calling? It's probably the anti-vaxxers. They want you hung-strung, put in bed, and the skin of your arse pulled over your head. And
can I ask you one more time to tell us about Centennial Glass, Lowell, please?
Folks, if you're in the market for glass of any kind, Centennial Glass is the place. They're good people. Just go to their website. You'll see all of the rave reviews. The workmanship is first rate. Best warranty in the business, so they tell me, and I believe them. Whether it's a major job you're doing in a hotel or a restaurant, or just some screen repairs in your house, Centennial Glass. I love them, so will you. Centennial Glass. I love you all. Have a good weekend. We will be back.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.